This week on the Idle Thumbs Cabal, we'll be discussing the launch of Spacebase DF-9, a game Chris and I worked on, made by Chris's employer, Double Fine, and guest of the show, JP LeBreton. And we'll be talking about Steve Gaynor's new podcast, Tone Control, where he interviews all of his friends in the games industry and talks about how good their games are. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Quadrilateral Cowboy, the digital lesbian remake of the film Midnight Cowboy.
It's October 15th, 2013.
This is Idle Thumbs 128, a podblast. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
And I'm Sean Vanneman.
And this is going to be a short one this week. We're going to do some reader mail and probably keep it to not much more than that. We're all pretty tired, I think.
Why are you so tired, Chris? What have you been working on?
Jake and I technically shipped a game today.
That's cool.
Spacebase DF-9 came out by Double Fine Productions, which I did the music for, and Jake did the UI for, and we made the website together for it.
Yep.
But it will continue to come out in tiny little pieces
continue to be developed
for a long time.
For a while.
Yeah.
It's in alpha right now. You can get it early access.
And if you need
At SpacebaseDF9.com, a good website. Buy?
Slash
if you want to buy it?
Oh.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. But also, you can just go to SpacebaseDF9.com.
With all of Spacebase's connections to Idle Thumbs, I would have expected a wizard URL to be attached to
Oh,
that.
I'll add that in.
But I guess that's right, you will.
And also, if you're hankering for a full length pod, our good friend Steve.
If you want 2 hours of us talking to Steve Gaynor.
Steve put out a new, I guess, series called Tone Control, which is him going around talking to game developers about how you sort of
develop games.
Develop it. Well, thanks. That's top notch, Chris. That's good. Your face turned into basically a Muppet face. Right. That was just
it just became
like you
Ernie.
just became Grover watching me step in a poop.
What does a smug Muppet look like?
Yeah.
Picture that.
Find out on Tone Control, the new podcast.
Yeah. But that's at idlethumbs.net/tone control, and it should be coming out every other week. And Steve talks to us first week, but then real people in later episodes, such as Neil Druckmann, who will be in episode 2. He was the creative director on The Last of Us.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And then it's Craig Hubbard, who is the writer and director of No One Lives Forever. And then a mystery guest, something. Steve's being coy, but you can probably guess
Claire Danes.
that it's Claire H. Danes, who rolls down a hill in the savannah. In Far Cry 2.
She's known for that. It's weird.
Yes.
Claire Homeland Danes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's Tone Control. It's an interview series by Steve. I was immediately just going to say it's really cool, which is stupid because Sean and I are the first guests because Steve wanted to kick it off with someone he knows. Nick says it's cool.
Yeah.
The upcoming episodes are also really good. It's going to be good stuff. idlethumbs.net/tone control.
Did you listen to it?
No.
Okay.
God, no.
Wow. Ouch. Burn. Sick burn.
I would say
burned
that it's
him.
grand stuff, but that's okay.
I'm sure it's good.
Should we read some mail from reader mails?
Yeah, let's read some mail from them, the readers.
Them, the readers.
I thought you said Reader Nels.
Let's read some mail from Reader Nels. Austin Light would like to know, what's up with random last-minute narrative choices in games? Sean's recent experience with the random ending of Batman reminded me to ask you guys about this. In Bastion, Mark of the Ninja, Batman, and a bunch of other games, you're presented with a narrative choice in the final moments, even though you didn't really have a say in the story until then. What's up with that? Why give the player control of the story when they haven't really had it the whole game? They're all mechanically dense games. They're filled with so much choice in gameplay. What weapon loadout do I choose? How do I approach these enemies? What upgrade do I buy next? That I'm totally fine with the story running on its own. I didn't come to any of those games to direct the story, especially Batman. He's Batman. What are they going to do? Kill him and end the character? I feel like throwing in narrative choice at the last minute kills momentum and yanks the player out of a story they were happily participating in as an audience member. I guess it all boils down to endings are hard. Game stories have a weird obsession with providing absolute closure. It's such a thing in games, the desire for closure, that I wonder if it paralyzes some developers. Presented with a potential fork in the narrative, they let the player decide so they don't have to. I thought the endings of The Walking Dead and The Last of Us showed a lot of constraint, just enough closure, just enough ambiguity, and both stories were better for it. Sorry, Sean just did a dunking motion. It was good. The former was a game based on narrative choice, the latter on gameplay choice. But I don't think those are mutually exclusive. See Mass Effect or The Witcher. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Austin Light. It's definitely a thing.
I don't like it just because it feels like it fucks up the pace of a bunch of design choices and mechanical choices that have already been made.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of get into the rhythm.
That stuff's already set in stone. Like,
Yeah,
it's already done.
you get-
The whole game you played is done.
Right. I mean, if Batman at every hour said, make a crazy narrative choice and the story is going to continue, that's the thing that people actually forget, is that the choice isn't interesting unless the story can just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a good point, because I feel like the sensation I often get from this particular I don't know, trope, I suppose, is that it feels like it's trying to retroactively assign meaning to things you previously did. You know, like it's sort of saying like, this is your character's like defining choice. Like this is the thing, like the thing they do now is the thing that ultimately determines like how they'll be remembered and like what their legacy is.
Right.
But it's completely blind to like the 8 hours of other stuff you've done before then. So like at that point, what do you know? What
It's surely wrestling with does the sort of previous, I guess, kind of binary, which is there is one ending that is defined, or the game tries to synthesize meaning out of your mechanical choices and then tell you what ending you deserve, I guess.
Right.
Whereas this is now sort of splitting the difference and saying what ending do you think you deserve.
Right.
But I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have no conclusion to that.
I mean, the problem is like the issue, I should say, not the problem, is so just caked in a bunch of bad choices that I think have been made with game endings like forever. I'm just since they had stories that were worth
concept of like
having
the good ending, stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying, kind of right? Goofy. So if you're coming from that, like if the tree of this is growing from the seed of that, where it's like, oh, I got the good ending, I got the bad ending,
right? Yeah.
I mean, it's also just because like it feels like games at their dictionary level are something that you're supposed to play to win or something like that. Mm-hmm. So then, I mean, that concept is completely like doesn't exist in narrative media really. Of like, I mean, there's like comedies and tragedies, I guess, but they're deterministic and that they're headed towards a certain place.
I like the idea that you can choose if you get to the very end of a game and then it asks, is this a comedy or a tragedy? And
the problem is I make that choice up front. Or I'm just like, well, I'm a fucking crazy person. Or, oh, no, I'm playing this game seriously.
At the end of the game, either everyone dies through poisoning or everyone gets married.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I was getting at when I said the idea of like trying to assign retroactive meaning.
Right.
You know, where it's like, now declare what all of that meant. You know,
so
but
weird.
Like, it's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I also don't think you should make design choices that instantly remind your player that they're playing a video game. If they ostensibly were supposed to be like had the suspension of disbelief.
Well, all of the mechanics sort of go to the point that you stop noticing that you're doing them. If the game is successful, it just sort of becomes what your brain it just disappears, it dissolves into the game. But then for that to pop up at the end,
especially the Batman games, because everything about those games mechanically is about empowering you to play as this hero.
Batman.
This is Batman. You know what's funny actually about Batman? I had a moment, you know, like when you know when somebody says the same word over and over again?
Batman?
Oh, like in the
For
theme
instance.
song to Batman?
Like na 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 na. Batman?
Yeah. But they say Batman a lot,
But
too.
you know, just any word.
Batman, they say Batman.
Right.
Batman! Oh, that's how they end up. They say Batman.
Yeah.
I cannot
No,
finish my thought.
please finish your thought.
I want to know what's funny about Batman.
I had that moment, like if you hear somebody say the same, like waffle, like if like, oh, the guy kept waffling, I don't know, I couldn't figure it out. It's waffling. You're like, oh my, if he says that again, I'm just gonna start laughing because it's like it's crawled inside and found that funny place. I was watching The Dark Knight, and Christian Bale just said, with all like complete earnestness, like
Gravitas.
Gotham needs the Batman. And I just started laughing. And I've seen this movie 15, 20 times maybe.
Really?
I watch it.
Seriously?
It's just one of those movies I put on.
Wow.
I put it on all the time. I really like the soundtrack. And it's just, I have like 3 movies that are all 6 out of 10s that just get put on all the time.
Yeah, it's a good
and for the first time in probably 15 viewings, I just started laughing. And I was laying in bed this like 2 a.m, watching it on my iPad, like rocking back and forth,
losing your
laughing.
shit.
And I was like, he has to call himself Batman.
Yeah.
Batman. Batman. Like,
no, Batman.
Show
like
me
my
all the
whole life.
blueprints. Batman.
Yeah,
Batman.
my whole life I've been a Batman. My whole, like, since I was 5.
My whole life I've been a
No,
Batman.
seriously, since I was like 5 years old. Basically, I remember my dad went on a long trip, and my mom was like, I'm gonna get a VHS copy of Michael Keaton's Batman, which is way too scary for you to watch. We're gonna watch it together. And I was just like Ren and Stimpy eyes the whole time. So happy.
You mean you had like boils and like
Boils and little
stuff.
hairs coming out of those
Like a
boils.
toothache.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he said it in a way that finally made your brain unpack
This
the word
crack.
like,
Right.
Batman. You're like, oh no.
24 years
Oh, no.
of Batman just came spiraling out in a
Right,
fucking
exactly.
tempest.
The Batman
It's like
logo
the,
slowly,
the ending of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, or it just tumbled
Yeah.
and shattered on the ground.
Exactly.
And then Batman's limp went away.
Yeah. Bruce Wayne flew away in his bat
Said,
plane.
Man.
Anyway.
I'm just imagining in your mind all the different like men who have played all the different mans who have played Batman, like running around, like Adam West with the bomb, like running around in your head. Every like Batman, like swirling in
they're all
a
just like,
miasma.
Batman.
Also,
It was like
Spider-Man
it
is
was
in there.
weird because it was like this brief like the only thing I could it was like being on a
Superman.
hallucinogenic where I saw everything through a like 15
went,
degrees to the right and I went like whoa.
It's like the Batman cabal. You like found the
Yes,
cabal.
I cracked the nut of the Batman cabal.
Yeah.
But I saw Christian Bale as Christian Bale say the words
Right.
Gotham
Just as
needs
a dude who was
Batman
hired to say-
on a roof
Yeah, right.
A set.
to that girl
A
whose
your
name I
brain
can't
suddenly-
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
You saw
Popped
the
in like the
man-
real life audio of it where there's the wind is Gotham needs Batman. Like,
And then it was just sort of like, he's like, really? Can we
Right.
not? Is there anything else I could say?
like,
Like,
what
can I
we
say
see-
he needs him?
It's like when you see
He
Darth
needs a
Vader
hero.
without James Earl Jones.
Needs somebody.
I think we've talked about this for half a second, but there's a
Oh
shot.
god, it's so good.
There's a shot in Star Wars: A New Hope where Darth Vader turns to the camera and the light flashes through the eyes of his mask for a second to the
Yeah.
point that the guy's face inside the mask
really?
gets
never seen
brighter
that.
for like 10 frames. It's right around the time Obi-Wan dies in A New Hope. And you just go, oh, there's a guy there. And Darth Vader is ruined forever. God, if you find that, just watch that stuff when Obi-Wan gets killed.
Mom, there's a guy in there.
It's so stupid.
I thought he was a robot.
You know, I mean, it's not that. It's the
I know. Yeah.
It's a puppet.
It's suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, it's so weird that there's just like
Oh,
saggy,
this is a man
sort of
who
like
was paid
sad
to dress
eyes.
up and then come to a fake spaceship.
Yeah,
The zipper on Godzilla. It's just, oh god.
it's just. Anyway, that's I guess what we think about random last minute choices in games. We said real stuff in there, and then we learned what's funny about
Then we
Batman.
blow out the mics for 5 minutes. All right.
Batman.
Oh, Batman.
Did any of that make sense? I'm really tired.
No, it totally made sense.
Okay.
You ruined Batman for me.
Bella Torpy writes, "Hi Thumbs, love the pods. I hope you keep casting them for a long time. I didn't... Jesus, Sean, you're dismal today. I didn't have an Xbox 360.
After Batman was crushed for Sean, nothing.
That's true.
It's all over.
The world has lost its sheen.
Yeah, as I wiped the last laugh tear from my eye, I said, I have to quit Idle Thumbs.
What did you say? Laugh tear? Was that like a? Is that like a?
It's like a tear that's from laughing.
Is that what that is?
I put that together myself with 2 words that I figured everybody
But you're
would
like,
know
I
the
wiped the
definition
last
of.
laugh tear out of my eye.
It sounds like a,
Like a legitimate portmanteau or
Yeah, it sounds
whatever.
like a portmanteau, yeah.
It's not.
All right. Anyway,
Oh, so this guy loves the pods.
I didn't have an Xbox 360 when Spelunky came out on XBLA. When it came out on Steam, I was days away from abandoning my PC and moving to uni with nothing but a Chromebook. It's a rough life. Because of this, I've never played Spelunky, but I've watched hours and hours of other people play it through the Explorers Club. Tom Francis, Anthony Birch, and Chris are the 3 main guys I follow. Oh,
You're new,
Wow,
though. I didn't even know you were doing
Nick
it.
Brecken.
Are you tweeting about it?
No, I'm not tweeting it. So
I feel like I might be doing a weird thing by following the Explorers Club and not playing Spelunky at all. I've also kept watching competitive Dota matches, even though I haven't played in months at this point. Do you guys have anything interesting to say about this way of consuming games?
I don't remember what my opinion on this was when we talked about it probably a couple months ago, but at this point, I think that I completely love that games as a spectator event exists. Like, I'm fully
you're into it.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you were into it.
Which is weird because I don't really spectate games that much, but like the fact that people are finding enough entertainment in like regimented Spelunky play that they can watch it the way that someone would watch tennis or something.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where people use like video on the internet in like almost like medicinal ways sometimes, where you're just like, I just need something to just relax and I don't want to watch a whole thing, and it's like it's so formal to like go pick a movie and have to watch it. Like I think there's something about like
That's a good point.
I don't know, the repetitiveness of it that people respond to, because it also has moments of surprise.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously,
It's totally unpredictable.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Video games are cool.
It's interesting. I think that was a really good. I like what you said about internet video in that way.
This is now Chris's Batman shattering moment. Looking off into space.
I don't have any like particularly impressive thoughts on this, but I've definitely found myself doing the same thing with various games. Like actually, the reason I started playing Spelunky was because I watched a bunch of those Explorers Club videos. I played it a couple times. Obviously, I loaded it up a bit, but I didn't really get into it until I saw those, and it was so interesting because that game in particular has such different things that can happen in it, and people of different skill levels end up just playing different games. Like they end up playing totally different games. Like physically, they'll play different levels because if you aren't past a certain point of competence, like I'm not. You're not even going to see the end of the game, and it's just a different thing. It's like the game where you die in the jungle a lot. But until then, like crazy things still happen. And I would imagine, especially if you don't play it at all, that must just be a crazy thing to watch. Mm-hmm. Where it's like some people have this whole interesting arc that happens over like 10 minutes. Then you watch the next person's, and they have a crazy interesting arc that lasts for like an hour. Mm-hmm. And is a totally different thing. Like different things happen. I saw a video, Tom Francis linked a video of a guy who beats the entire game of Spelunky in 5 minutes and 17 seconds.
Oh, yeah, I watched that too. Yeah.
It was terrifying. I mean, it was scary. It's like a guy's doing this right now. Like, as you're watching, he did it, I think, live. I think he did it on Twitch.
Yeah, he did.
He was, like, responding to people
he's like,
in
I guess
the
that was pretty good. Yeah, it was good.
It was, like, totally nuts. I couldn't believe it. Because it's this thing that I've played a whole lot of times, and it just reframes it in a completely different context. I'm like, every single instinct I would have right now is completely different from every instinct he has. And it's not even that he's doing it right, because he's just not even trying to get like items or anything. He's just trying to bypass everything as fast as he possibly can. It's just fascinating. It's just interesting to observe. Games are weird like that because they have those elements. Like sports is like that too in a lot of ways.
Right. I was just going to say that.
Games are weird because you can just sit down at your computer and that can just happen. It's weird. It's super weird.
I watch a lot of sports and I'm depressed. I will watch like 4 baseball games in a day if I'm working on something and having a hard time with it. And I think in streaming video games tickles the same sensor.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mean to be down about it, but I will definitely curl up with one. Like, oh yes, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's something about that's really
there's like a
too.
framework within
the rules will be obeyed.
But then every once in a while, something transcendent happens, and it's like
which is
readjust your brain for seconds.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
But it's only transcendent in the context of all the other time.
Sure. The guy's not going to blast into a rocket ship
right.
and then end up in space.
What?
It's safe.
It's comforting. Yeah, because you know what's going to happen, but you don't know. I don't know. There's something about that.
It's like watching somebody play an instrument or something. I don't know.
Still, you don't know.
You don't know.
They could fuck up.
They could.
Yeah, but
they could do a little thing.
Fuck up in a sport or a game.
But they could
like thing.
Yeah, a little improvisation. Yeah. Oh.
It's completely different to me than watching music. Sorry, I don't know why I had to felt the need to say that to you. Me personally, when I watch people play music, I'm like enraptured. Like I'm just like ensorcelled.
I mean, like music videos on YouTube or something.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
People are just playing instruments. Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
Same way
funny,
that
actually,
Let's Play
the version of this that I actually do probably
like a busker.
No.
The version of that for me that I do that's probably similar to what you're talking about with sports is I will get in a phase where I will home in on a particular artist and just watch like every live performance of them I can find on YouTube, like every single one. And so it's the same, it's the same set of material. So and they probably didn't fuck up, or they wouldn't have.
And then you're like, oh, that's
released
the
that
same
one.
solo that you
You know.
played at 2 gigs prior.
I don't. That's not usually a thing that bothers me or that I care about.
That's
Like,
all you obsess over, Chris.
But it's like there's always these little things that are different, and it's like those are cool to have your brain kind of like spark on for a bit. But like in general, it's basically the same material. Like
Right.
you've heard it before. I really love it. I got into a huge like week-long episode of that with Queen a couple weeks ago, where I just watched like every single Queen performance that exists on the internet, like at least that's on YouTube. It was absurd. Just shit like that. Yeah, when I was making a website, I was just constantly watching Queen. Anyway, interesting.
Weird mailbag.
Yeah.
Personal insights.
Right?
Yeah.
Foibles.
This is the Idle Thumbs personal bag.
Yeah.
David Thatcher writes, Dear Thumbs, regarding your discussion of alpha funding and community feedback, Spelunky did actually go through the same kind of revision process as Minecraft or Binding of Isaac. Derek Yu put a build-up of the game on the TigSource forums in December 2008. An enthusiastic community formed around it and suggested tweaks and features. Most of the really deep hidden stuff in the game was actually added over the course of those revisions, and a lot of it probably came from people suggesting things they thought would be cool. None of those early builds are still online, sadly. Peace and Wizards, David Thatcher. That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
that's a good Spelunky fact.
Yeah, I like that fact.
Also, it's kind of actually a bummer hearing that ending with, and none of those builds are online anymore, because that would actually be kind of fascinating to check out.
I know, yeah.
Or at least a YouTube retrospective of that.
Spelunky-esque
existed.
archaeological
Yeah.
dig. God, yeah, if he had like a time lapse of those builds, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of thing that Brendan Chung is able to do.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have time to watch this because we were launching a video game today, but apparently he did.
Yeah,
He's been live streaming Quadrilateral Cowboy development as
That's
like he
awesome.
just does a couple hours a day on Twitch now, where he is just streaming his computer as he makes the
That's
game.
crazy. I didn't know he did that every day. I got to look at
Yeah,
some of
he's
those.
doing
I missed
It's
them
a
all.
recent development, I think.
Cool. That's awesome. What an
really
interesting
cool.
thing to do. Good guy. I like that guy. Johnny Red writes, Greetings. While listening to some of the older podcasts, I came across a very interesting tidbit. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Steve Hotscoops Gaynor verbally expressed the original idea, which would eventually become Gone Home, immortalized on the Idle Thumbs podcast 11, Extremes. There is lots of interesting talk about exploring small spaces through the first half of the podcast. Then the wheel in his head starts turning around a 30-minute mark, and then he links the timestamped YouTube video. Then the full idea at 31:20. I would just like to see a game that was like, hey, we sort of simulated an apartment or a house or something, and you can interact with everything that was there. I was blown away, IGN.com, to hear this so casually mentioned on the podcast. Never before have I heard such a small concept briefly mentioned in conversation come to fruition as a fully realized game years later. It makes me wonder if other games were conceived in similar ways. Anyway, great work. Congrats to Jake and Sean on the new company. Also, congrats, Nick. I like Nick. Cheers, guys. Johnny.
There's no reason for that to be in this episode other than I thought it was sweet that Idle Thumbs once again sneaks
Predicted
in.
itself.
Predicted its own fucking bullshit years in advance.
No, that's cool. It's actually the first game I worked on at Double Fine, The Cave, was a Ron Gilbert game, and the concept of the cave, which was like a bunch of characters sort of descending in this weird, self-aware cave in search of their deepest desire, is an idea that Ron Gilbert had 30 years ago before he made Maniac Mansion, and just kind of never made until he got to Double Fine, like in 2000. I guess they, whenever he started there in like 2010 or whatever.
It's weird.
Yeah. Like he said he was telling me he got an email from a friend that he worked with like in his pre-LucasArts days, like in the 80s, who I don't think had kept up with really over the years, and he got an email from this guy who was like, "That's that game that you like drew the sketch of in your your desk in like 1986 or whatever. Like that's the thing you were gonna make." And he's like, "Yeah, that's the game."
Crazy.
How crazy is that? That idea is older than I am. The game that I worked on with Ron Gilbert is an idea that he had before I was born. Weird. That's like seriously, no. That really adjusted my thinking about the notion of like what a career is.
Yeah, it's
you know what I mean? Like what like ideas are, and like
Right.
the concept of a professional career. Like that's crazy. That's amazing. I don't know.
Think of all the unborn babies who are going to make your ideas.
Gross.
I don't. You framed this in a way that makes it no longer like a wondrous, fascinating thing, and now it's
Sorry.
just weird.
Didn't mean to take that from you.
That's okay, Sean.
Sorry.
I don't know. I thought that was a weird thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's see. Jordan. Whoa. A1CUHL Jordan N TMDE technician writes, "Hey Thumerians. So how do you think virtual reality will affect the realism of video games in terms of the age-old controversy between game violence and aggressive behavior?" Example: a 16-year-old kid who's very perceptive and easily tends towards violent behavior, hereditary perhaps, plays Grand Theft Auto 8 on the future VR helmet and decides that killing people in that game feels good while doing so. Do you believe it will get to the point where VR gaming won't be allowed if the consumer takes a physiological test and has a profile on record before being able to use one? P.S. I'm sure you guys have noticed, but it is very hard to hear a couple of you during the podcast. Maybe move closer to your microphone so I can hear you better. Thanks. Please keep up the great show /work.
I've actually heard that from a few people recently. Apparently our mix is a little bit funky.
I'll adjust that.
Apparently.
I made that shudder because it really bothers me to think about.
Yeah, it's
know.
pretty gross.
I get overstimulated as it is, but I don't want to slip into old man territory either.
Yeah.
There's going to be an entire generation of people who play games while I'm still in the business, probably, that I just don't understand. And I'm just going to be okay with that and be curious about it and not cry.
Did you guys see the new VR glasses from Jerry Ellsworth, who was fired from Valve, I guess, a while ago? But now
I heard about that.
She launched a Kickstarter,
leaving,
and
being fired.
It was her and one other guy, this guy Rick also from Valve, who's she's the hardware side, and this other guy's the software side. And so she's building the glasses themselves and doing the crazy camera projection stuff, and then he's doing the drivers and API related things.
They seem intense though. It's a weird.
Yeah, no, they seem like they really know what they're doing.
It does stuff very differently than the Oculus Rift, which is Oculus Rift is the really classic VR headset style, where it's just there is a flat screen inside of an enclosed headset, whereas this looks like
it's called Castar. I think it's Cast AR.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me that it's Castar.
Oh, it's like the Ape Extreme 2005 reference. It's got two tiny polarized projectors affixed to the glasses, and it can project out into the world, correct? On
the idea
surfaces?
is that it looks like the chess in Star Wars. In the original Star Wars movie, Chewbacca
see a
and
projected
C-3PO play chess on the spaceship. And
the way Cast AR works, though, is it projects just onto a flat surface, but your eyes see it in stereoscopic 3D.
Right. It doesn't. Yeah, only the person wearing the glasses sees that projection.
It seems like it's a combination of sort of Oculus Rift style VR stuff plus when those guys were doing wacky Wii Remote head tracking stuff a few years back, where you move your head and then what's projected on the surface moves in 3D so that it all appears to your brain as if there's some degree of perspective.
Well, instead of recording this podcast right now, we could be at O'Reilly's Irish Pub on Green Street, actually using it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had right this second they have a sweet Kickstarter kickoff thing with the glasses there.
And it looks like they also have an attachment you can clip over the glasses that turns it into
the projector stuff then just goes onto screens that are right next to your eyes, so it also can do the Rift style thing.
Full enclosure. Yeah.
It seems really cool. I saw Bennett Foddy tweeted about it, saying it was the first time he'd used. Bennett Foddy is the guy who made QWOP and Pole Riders. He tweeted saying it was different enough from Oculus Rift that it didn't make him feel weirdly woozy, which he apparently is an issue for some people with the Oculus Rift, but just because I don't know what the hell it is about it, but it was cool to see people just doing a completely different paradigm as far as how to do totally. A headset work thing. The fact that you can actually see the wearer's eyes most of the time makes it way less weird than the Oculus Rift.
Wearing this crazy cyberpunk device.
It still looks like a cyberpunk device, but it looks like the ones that the wily inventor wears instead of the bad guy.
Did we ever talk?
We talked.
I talked about being in a bar and seeing a big guy with the Oculus Rift.
In this version, when the person comes out of the virtual world, they look at you wild-eyed, and then they're projecting their imagery onto your body instead, which is just as fucking weird, but it's just a different cyberpunk stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the interesting thing about this is it seems like the way they're pitching it seems to be a lot more oriented towards turn your board game into a crazy thing, because of the nature of the thing. It's augmented reality, is the thing they're pushing more than the virtual reality side, where it's adding things to the actual world you're looking at with your real eyes.
Because one of the things that they are pairing it with is what looked like a rollout tabletop, like a rollout tablecloth mat thing that has pressure sensors or some sort of other spatial sensors inside of it, so that
it's RFID.
Oh, is that how it works?
Tags in the base of the models of the game you're playing. Like it comes with little circular RFID things.
You don't need. It's not necessarily used for tabletop games exclusively, but the idea.
But that's one of the things they're doing.
You could have objects that sit on somewhere on the XY coordinates of that mat, and the glasses would know where they are and could project other things around those objects that you then see in 3D.
Stats can hover next to them and
So you could conceivably just set a flat token down and it could project a 3D character. Like a Pokemon.
Yeah. It's cool. It seems interesting.
Like a me.
I like that it's anchored in the real world. I think that's cool. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but I don't know.
I'm going to buy Pokemon before I go on my trip.
Are you?
Yeah.
For your Nintendo 3Ds?
Yep. Got a 3D in that thing. It's so dumb to talk about. I think it's really good.
The 3D?
I find the 3D really fun. I'm sure there are games where the 3D it makes you hate it, but Luigi's Mansion and Mario 3D Land are both fun.
I really like
3D.
it a lot. I think it adds a lot to the experience.
Yeah. I think we kind of dodged around that guy's question, but it is a
oh yeah, I don't really know. It's
so
hard to say, right? Like it's just really it's definitely an interesting train of thought for sure. It's a powerfully suggestive train of thought in that you could totally imagine that being a thing, but also I'm not a student of psychology to the point that I would be able to.
Yeah, it's a thing
that scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember I have this specific memory of playing the Ninja Turtles game for NES or something for 4 straight hours and then just going crazy with just the fake karate moves, and my mom, I distinctly remember her saying you've been playing all those video games and now you're just doing your violence stuff, you're just being a violent kid. I told you you're going to be a violent kid, and she would play that game with me.
So I punched her.
Yeah, that's literally the same as kids watching cowboy shows, though.
I know.
That's exactly the same.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. There's no scale.
You didn't steal.
Kids are shitty.
A knife.
Kids are so shitty.
Yeah, you can go back to Cops and Robbers and.
But I have been punched by a kid.
Whatever you want to talk about. Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. I know.
They're just animals.
I like the way you phrase it. I've been punched by a kid so much. Suggests that it might be a particular kid.
What's the next email? Just kidding. I don't know. Kids are.
Yeah.
Babies are cool.
Next email.
Kids. Babies can be fucking cool. Kids are shitty.
It's from Johnny, age 8. He writes, "Tell Sean to shut the fuck up, or next time he comes over, I'm going to beat the shit out of him."
Signed.
Love the podcast. Fuck Nick, Johnny.
Wow.
With a backwards letter in his name.
Yep.
Yeah.
That H.
One N of them.
Yeah.
That backwards H.
JOHN.
Oh, lowercase. Sorry, I was thinking about uppercase H.
He wrote it all.
P.S. I love that Ninja Turtles game. When can I play it again? My mom says I can't play it anymore.
Let's get her.
I'll meet you in the cybernetic virtual chat room.
Let's see.
The Palace.
That sounds like a thing.
It is.
Casey Sears writes, "Thumbers. I opened the App Store on my Mac to update some software, and I was delighted to see Gone Home on the front page." This was a while ago. Or maybe it's still there. I don't know. I clicked on the game and found this humorous review. The review says, "I can't remember how many Bibles I found discarded in the bottom of a drawer. The entire program portrays rock music as evil, leading to poor choices in life, such as drugs and sexual preferences. I don't want to play a game with prejudiced preaching as its core priority and purpose. I really want my money back, so it doesn't support this closed-minded mentality propaganda. Shame on you, iTunes. The message is so blatant. The game is deviant in nature, spying on family members' personal locked belongings. I want a refund for false representation. The game is nothing like what you advertised. Who is responsible for approving this on iTunes? Did that employee even review the game? By Respectful Mom."
Respectful.
My question is, do you think Respectful Mom
Is
someone who completely didn't get it is entitled to a refund? if it were my phone is not displaying this very well. If it were a boxed game, she could easily return it. Now it's hers in the cloud forever, and she could download it again if she wanted to for the foreseeable future.
I don't think people are entitled to anything, but at the same time, it's weird because I know Steve.
Yeah.
If that woman emailed me personally and said that to her, I would say, "Man, do you have a minute to get on the phone?" Because I'm so curious. I want to dig. I want to scratch at this a little bit.
Because the thing that's so interesting about this review,
and then I would totally give her her money
She must
back.
have played a decent amount of the game.
I would give her
That's
her
the
money back
interesting
up front
That's
as like
also true,
payment
but the
to get
other
her on the
thing
phone
is
and
how-
figure out what's going on here.
I'm fascinated by her like moral stance.
I know. That's why I want to talk to her.
Are you wondering about why she doesn't bring up the sexuality stuff?
She kind
said
of does.
sexual
She said-
preferences.
She just mentions
Oh, yeah.
the existence
Sexual
of
choices.
sexual preferences.
Yeah.
But it's like I love that she interprets the game as portraying rock music as evil. Like she thinks the game is putting a negative, is like deliberately saying rock music is bad because then drugs happen.
God, I didn't catch
Right.
Whereas
Wow,
in her
that's
mind,
nice.
like no, rock music is great.
Right.
Why would you claim that it leads to drugs and
But it's
sexual
still
preferences?
amoral to be sneaking around somebody's house.
Right, and that's interesting too. Like that's an interesting perspective.
I know. You gotta get this lady on the horn.
In life.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then
what
she
I
says
would do, but it's selfish. It's not like I think she's entitled to something. I would give her her refund.
And then she says the
I would-
message is so blatant, which is like I actually can't figure out what message you think the game is sending because I feel like if you took half a sentence from this, you'd be like, oh, I see, I can like extrapolate that person's views. Then you read the second half of the sentence and you're like, wait a second, what? Like, what does this mean? It's such an interesting collection of bizarre opinions.
That's why you got to talk to her.
You gotta just.
There's probably no way to get a hold of her.
No, I'm trying to. No, there's no
It's
way.
an iTunes review. Also, it's really hard to refund that person because I don't think you can actually issue a refund.
Oh my god!
to the
I would
iTunes
send
store.
her a fucking check in the mail.
But I mean, how do you get that person's contact information? I think.
I mean, after if I was able to make contact with Respectful Mom.
Yeah.
I find it that Respectful Moms are hard to make contact with in my day-to-day life.
Looking for respectful moms in your area? I find respectful moms are the hardest to get. Like, what? All right. We have another email that Jake flagged, but I feel like we've already read this email. I guess,
did we? Did we flag the email where the person said Pikmin 2 multiplayer is the best thing and they could watch the stream forever?
Yeah.
Okay, then we don't need to read it
It's
again.
called Being Around You.
Someone wrote in and talked about that. It was a while ago. I wasn't sure if someone talked about how good Pikmin 2 multiplayer is and how they want to watch more streams of it. But I guess we've already.
So I'm not really familiar with Pikmin. Could you give me the rundown?
So you're this alien and
You have a spaceship.
you have a spaceship and it crashed and you're trying to get back home.
you want to like reassemble your spaceship from
Yeah.
parts.
There's bugs.
It's like Gone Home.
Yes.
You're trying to gone home.
E.T. Gone Home.
Yeah.
And that concludes the dumbest episode of Vinyl Thumbs ever committed to tape.
I don't know if that's true. There's some shitty.
No, there was that
episodes
Joe
of
Pesci blast.
That's true. When we figured out Nick was the white Joe Pesci.
Oh, the best episode of Idle Thumbs ever is the one where I come on the microphone and say, there is no Idle Thumbs this week. And then it was over. So we've beat that by having... Maybe we haven't beat it by having...
Maybe that should have been this one. Maybe.
Who knows? If you have a question for idlethumbs.net, write us at questions@idlethumbs.net. If you thought this was great for some reason, please review us on iTunes. But maybe give us a few weeks before you do that.
If you're a respectful mom who would like to share your opinions on this episode of Idle Thumbs, please review us on iTunes. We don't issue refunds.
Because this podcast is free.
How many moms do you think listen to Idle Thumbs?
Probably at least a couple, right?
Over under 10. My birthday is in 8 months.
Cool. Happy Dishonored birthday, to Sean Vanneman. Wait a minute.
Happy week before Dishonored Halloween.
Happy week before Dishonored Halloween. God damn it. We're almost at the 1 year anniversary of the first Dishonored Halloween. They just started celebrating Halloween last year in Dishonored World.
Because Corvo brought it to them.
Corvo.
That's how the game.
Halloween.
That's how the game ends. Corvo discovers Halloween inside of one of the many
I
bodies
give you this,
that he created.
Halloween. Isn't Halloween next year? Or not until next week?
That's why he wears that mask.
Dishonored. Game of the Year edition. That's why he wears
That
the mask.
started the tradition of them wearing masks.
Oh man. If
Jumping off rooftops and stabbing people and
that
asking
Game
for
of the Year
candy.
trailer starts with trick or treat.
Nice mask.
Nice mask.
Nice mask said by the mom.
Yes.
My hope is
By the mom, who are you?
very nice mask.
mask.
It's a nice Corvo mask.
Three Musketeers.
Do you want a Dishonored
want a
Two
Dishonored,
Musketeers?
Yes, I do.
So, if you're just discovering Idle Thumbs via tone control this week, that is our quality pre-roll.
Ugh.
Go back 1 year and learn about the etymology of the Dishonored jokes. Go back 1 Earth year to learn about what the year of Dishonored has been like.
One Dishonored year,
which is
51
weeks.
Wow.
Oh, God. Idle Thumbs is gone.